Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Film Fan Club Show. I am Sam Carrico, believe it or not. I hope everyone watching had a fantastic 4th of July. Yeah, with the recent presidential debate, I personally can't think of a better time to celebrate our country's past while knowing, no matter what happens, its future is in the right hands. We've got a great show for you coming up tonight, guys. Filmmaker Manny Marquez is going to be on to talk about his new film, Make Peace or Die. It actually won Best Documentary Film at the Circle Cinema Film Festival. That's where you can see it this weekend if you're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But there's a lot of big movie news from June to get to first. The long-awaited sequel, Inside Out 2, was finally released in theaters. I loved it, although my theater experience was impacted by all the screaming kids in the auditorium. I mean, come on, a 4-year-old he wasn't even alive when the first movie came out. Don't they realize that this movie was made for people like me? You know, single guys in their late 20s who were 19 when the first movie came out. In other superhero news, Marvel's Blade reboot has lost its director. Yann Diemage is out, and he's not the first director to abandon this project. Which makes me wonder if the only difference between Blade and a blood-sucking vampire is that one sucks blood for a living, and the other just sucks. But enough about Marvel, let's talk about some more family-friendly fare. The sequel to Freaky Friday is in production, and Lindsay Lohan is back. I mean, who doesn't love a good body swap comedy? Although, if I were Lindsay Lohan, I'd be more concerned about swapping bodies with someone who doesn't have a perpetual hangover. Guys, have you seen A Quiet Place Day 1? Oh yeah, that cat Frodo is stealing the show. In fact, I think Frodo's got his own agent now. Hey, Frodo's looking for more lead roles. He's tired of just being a plot device. Honestly, I didn't realize how much money there is to be made here, so I took the liberty of taking some headshots of my cat, Scooter. He's now available for gigs. He's 14, but can play younger. Any inquiries can be directed to my social media. And finally, Kinds of Kindness came out over the weekend. Well, it actually came out on June 21st, but just made it here to Tulsa over the weekend. Whatever. Getting right to it. This might be my favorite movie of the year so far. It's kind of like The Twilight Zone, but with a more artistic flair. Obviously, it's directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, who did both Poor Things and The Lobster. This is way better than Poor Things, though. Emma Stone returns here, and not only does the main cast give a great performance, but they each give 3 great performances, since the film is an anthology comprising 3 separate stories. I honestly don't know which of the 3 stories was my favorite. They all had like a momentum that built on one another and made for a great third act. When the end credits finally come on screen, you realize you've been experiencing this like adrenaline rush for 2.5 hours. That being said, my main takeaway from the film, the director wants to be dominated by Willem Dafoe so badly. I mean, this movie is so horny for Willem Dafoe. Of the 3 storylines, 2 of them involve Jesse Plemons being dominated by Willem Dafoe. And I can't help but feel that's an author insert. It's a little off-putting, I'm not gonna lie. You mean the Green Goblin did what with Gwen Stacy? Oh my god, this is the Sins Past storyline all over again. But if that's the price I have to pay for Emma Stone and Margaret Qualley, I'll pay it. Okay, we've got a great show for you lined up. Let's get right to our discussion of Make Peace or Die. And joining me now, he's a filmmaker based in Northeast Oklahoma, whose new film, Make Peace or Die, is currently making the film festival circuit. Manny Marquez is here. Welcome, Manny.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sam.
It's a pleasure. We met briefly, and you remembered whenever I talked. You remembered who I was after I only talking briefly, and you were happy to do the show. So thank you so much for that. It's a pleasure to have you here. Before we start talking about your new film, Make Peace or Die, you've been a filmmaker for a while. So kind of this being your first time on the Film Fan Club show, I just thought maybe we'd ask a little bit about your background, kind of your entry into this business, your previous feature film, maybe who are some of your influences, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've been in the film industry about 25 years. Been interested in filmmaking since I was a young child. Started around the age 7 taking photographs. I got a Fisher Price camera, a little 110 camera from my mom for my birthday, and I started taking photos. And around the same time, we had a subscription to the Ranger Rick magazine. I don't know if you remember that, but it's like an offshoot for kids of the National Geographic, and
Yeah.
there were the Adventures of Ranger Rick, and he always getting in trouble and always getting into adventure with his buddies. And around age 7 or 8, I started writing my own Ranger Rick stories, and I started sending those into the National Geographic and thinking, oh, I want to be a storyteller. But really around that time, I have an uncle. His name's Victor Marquez, and he's local here in Tulsa. He runs the Psychopath Haunted Attraction, which is here out in Sperry area, and that came from him wanting to be a special effects makeup artist in Hollywood. But he ended up getting into the family business, which was garbage, and getting married and having children, and he stayed, and he ended up building that haunted house theme park. Well, when I was a kid, he was doing special effects makeup and as a hobby.
Yeah.
And we were big into Star Trek, like The Next Generation. We were big into, when DS9 came along, we were big into those shows. And I always wanted to be a Klingon. So he took the face impression and made me a Klingon, and we go to these conventions, and I had the uniform and everything. And I started doing the makeup myself because I thought I wanted to be a special effects makeup artist. But then I determined that I have like giant sausage paws, and I wasn't very good at the sculpting and the fine tuning of being a special effects makeup artist is also the sculpting and the making of the mask with the clay and everything. And I was doing these little Star Trek movies with my cousins around age 12 or 13, and I was doing makeups for them, and I realized by like the third or fourth of these films, I wasn't doing the makeups anymore. I was just writing the stories and directing the stories. And I kind of fell in love with being a director and a storyteller, and went to film school in the late 90s in California. And and haven't looked back since. Worked in reality television briefly. I mean, very briefly. Got out of there as soon as I could as a camera operator, and started my first feature film, Psychopath, which you can see the poster back there. That was a movie about my uncle building his haunted house theme park, this garbage man in rural Oklahoma that decides to build this haunted house theme park. And that was my first feature film. I spent a lot of time making that, and simultaneously kind of coming along at the same time when the world, I think you're a little younger than me, but if around 2000, the world was changing, the internet was blowing up. What things like webisodes and web content was coming along, things that hadn't even occurred to me when I had started film school.
Right.
I was able to make a living as a filmmaker in a arena that didn't exist when I started film school. So, I got in on the ground floor of kind of doing documentary web content on the internet way early in the 2000s. And then at the same time, simultaneously directing music videos, getting into, commercial direction, and still writing my screenplays, and then, really leaning more towards the documentary side, because it was like, oh, no one can say no to me. Like, if you write a script, somebody can greenlight it, or they might not greenlight it, or you have to raise the money. But if you make a documentary, you can pick up the camera and go do it. It was a lot like cycling. I used to be a cyclist. I'm not as fit as I used to be, but I remember one lady asked me, like, how did you get into cycling? I said, it's real easy. I walked out to the street and I threw my leg over the bike and I started pedaling. And it was like documentary storytelling was like that. I grabbed the camera, I walked out the street and I started filming, and it was like, it was a way of being free without the encumberment of like answering to a studio or something. Obviously as you get more success and you start selling your projects and distributing your projects, then you get reeled back into reality a little bit. But that's what kind of led me to the documentary world. And I don't want to be just a documentary filmmaker. I want to be a filmmaker. I am a filmmaker, but documentary has become my main source of outlet for my art at this time. So yeah.
I can relate to what you're saying, though, a little bit, because in my day job, I'm a TV news photographer, and you get to apply a lot of what you learn in film. Not that I went to film school, but I do enjoy filmmaking, and I do enjoy the process of filmmaking, and I've dabbled in filmmaking myself here and there. I don't want to sell myself short, but nothing to the extent that you do. But I get to apply what I love about filmmaking to photojournalism, but also photojournalism cuts out a lot of that stuff that gets in the way, like a studio process or anything like that. I can just go out and document what's happening in my community and then tell a story about that. So I can relate to that. Not that I'm making a documentary or anything, but I can relate to what you like about documentary filmmaking in that way. Um, talking about your second feature film, Make Peace or Die. Well, firstly, the production company, XVII Films, Roman numeral 17, right?
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the significance behind that number being the title of the production company?
Yeah, XVII 17 films. We say 17 films, but it is XVII. My brother was in the Marine Corps. He deployed to Afghanistan in 2011. On that deployment, his unit had 17 KIAs, 17 men killed in action. When my brother returned from that deployment, he only had about another 6 months left in the Marine Corps. He was already 5.5 years into his time in the Marine Corps.
Right.
And like a lot of guys that go to the Marine Corps or go to the military in general, they come back carrying a lot of demons, PTSD, survivor's guilt, a lot of wounds that are not visible they carry with them. And so my brother was around 5 years later, one of the Gold Star mothers, and a Gold Star family, if people that aren't familiar, is a family that lost someone during a time of conflict. And one of the Gold Star mothers, one of the mothers of the men that died, she attempted suicide, and on this young man's birthday. And my brother saw this, and he said, "I got to do something more for these families." And so he started doing these battlefield cross carvings, which is the boots, the rifle, and the helmet, and chainsaw carving. And he made one and delivered that to her on the anniversary of this Marine's death. After he did that, he said, "I can't just do this for her. I have to do this for the next 16 families." And so it took him 3 years to track down the families, to track down the grave, because he always went to the grave. And he chainsaw carved out of wood this battlefield cross, the boots, the rifle, and the helmet. And he hand delivered it over 40,000 miles on the road, hand delivered it. And the idea for 17 films came from around 2019. He delivered that last battlefield cross. And he said, it's almost the 20th anniversary of our deployment, which would have been 2021. He said, I'd really like to get on the road and if you're into it, make a documentary about these families and what they've been through. I want to give them a voice so no one forgets their son's name, their husband's name, their brother's name. And we formed 17 films at that time in honor of those men. I actually have another production company as well. Remuda Pictures is my own personal production company, but 17 Films was established especially for the making of the film Make Peace or Die, and it's in honor of those 17 men that died in Afghanistan in 2011 with the 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. So
you obviously, he's your brother, so you kind of knew that this was going on while this was all happening. But what were those conversations like whenever you guys kind of were like, this would actually be something we'd like that would be worth putting in a documentary?
Well, the thing is, it's like there's been a lot of movies, and I don't want to denigrate anybody who's made a movie about their deployments or anybody that's made a movies about PTSD.
Right.
There's been a lot of movies about PTSD. There's been a lot of movies about the battles in Afghanistan and Iraq. There's been a lot of really in-depth YouTube videos by guys that went and revisited their battalions and stuff. But and again, not all the movies are like this, but a lot of them just are not quality. They don't sound good. They don't look good. They have really good intentions, but they weren't shot as cinema. Mm-hmm. They were shot. They were and God bless all those guys that went out and did what they could do to make a movie. We also just didn't want to touch on the hot button issues like PTSD, like veteran suicide. We cover all of those things in our movie, but it's not what the movie's about. It's about in a country that's so divided that I don't know if we're allowed to say cuss words on this podcast.
Sure, no, yeah, go ahead.
When my brother deployed, I had friends that were on the film industry, that were in bands, that were in in entertainment. And I literally had a friend, we were sitting in a bar or something, and I said, "Oh, my brother's deployed to Afghanistan." And one of my friends turned to me and said, "Fuck your brother, I hope he dies." Because he was an anti-war guy, Oh, wow. And I'm an anti-war guy, but I'm not anti-military or anti-supporting our troops,
right.
And then I had friends on the other side that were rah-rah, raising the flag, waving the flag, America, USA, USA. What the big thing I told my brother was like, if we make this movie, we have to make a non-political movie. We have to make a movie that all of those people that were like, "Fuck your brother, hope he dies," and all those USA people could get into the theater and slowly inch a little closer until they realized they were sitting in the I almost said pew. That shows you where my head is, in the seat next to each other. And they could realize that the movie they're watching isn't about what they think about war or what they think about the military. The movie they're watching is about empathy and healing, because there are people in this country, well over 3,000 people during the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts, that lost their loved ones to this war. Young men and women that went and fought this war, not for the sake of left or right, Democrat or Republican. They went because they believe in this country, or they went because they had no other choice in terms of their education, or or they just loved the military because grandpa or grandma or whoever served. There were people that the military was where they wanted to be, and yet there's families with a hole in their heart because they've lost that little piece of their heart, you know. And so if we could create a movie that was full of empathy and understanding and healing. And the sneaky part is, my brother was suffering from all this stuff, but he didn't want to admit it. But I made the movie as much for his own healing, to get in this RV with him and to travel around the country. We went 40 days, 37 states, 12,000 miles, 17 families, 23 Marines, 4 Navy corpsmen. It was his healing journey too. And that was the only way I would make the movie. I said, I won't make the movie unless you're in the movie. I don't want to be in the movie. I don't want to say, no, you have to be in the movie. Because he didn't, I kept saying, well, you're the hero. You're the hero. And he goes, I'm not a hero. I was like, no, you're not a hero. Fuck that. I don't mean you're a hero. You're the hero of the story, like Indiana Jones in the Temple of the Doom, or what, it's, you're the hero. You're not a hero. I'm not calling you a hero. And once he understood that he was the glue that held it together, that his passions for these families, that his passion for giving these families a voice was the glue, then he did it. And I have to say, like, it did help heal him a lot. I mean, after we completed the movie, he got engaged. He's married. Oh, wow. You know, like there's things that I saw him work through that he didn't even know he was working through. And so, yeah, that's what the conversations were about. It was like, it's about giving a voice to these families. It's about making the name of those 17 men known. And secretly, it was about me helping my brother heal. And so those were the conversations, really, you know.
Well, I appreciate, especially, in a time of such intense, you touched on this as well, but in time of such intense divisiveness, making a movie that you talk about Democrats, Republicans, the guy who said, fuck your brother, the people who are, totally, pro-war on the other side. Everybody can watch this movie and be connected to just the people in it and what they're going through. And I also love you as a brother being like, yes, let's tell the story. I definitely want to, make this for all the other reasons, but also secretly, trying to do your brother a solid and help him kind of resolve this trauma. And so it sounds like his things have gone well for him as well since the film. So I'm excited to hear about that. But I want to ask about you as well. You're going on this journey with him. Making this film, it's very intense subject matter. How did you deal with that over the course of the production and then since making it?
Well, I didn't serve in the military,
Right.
I didn't serve in the military, but I think everyone has their own unique charism, their own unique gifts they can bring. And there were times that I felt like imposter syndrome. You know, like I was with these Marines, I was doing these big things on a Marine base. I was meeting with these families and talking with these families and Marine generals and people. And I felt like a fraud at times, until I sat with one of the Marines, Armando Rivera, who was there, and he saw some of his buddies die. And we were sitting together having a beer one night after filming. And he said, you're one of us, brother. You're a brother. You're telling our story. You're telling our story. And I by no means think I'm a Marine at all. I am not a Marine. I did not serve there. I did not. But I feel like I'm a part of a little tiny thread in their story. And all the things I set out to do was to tell a great story and to make a great film. I think we've achieved that. I mean, I've had friends that are, again, I don't mean to be political because the movie's not political, but I had a friend call me and say, I'm a bleeding heart leftist and I loved your movie. He goes, and he showed it to his 14-year-old son, and he said, my son has no interest in things like this. And he said, this is cinema, and because they're film nerds. Yeah. And I was like, that made me happy because I set out to make a great movie, not a great war movie, not a great anti-war movie. I set out to make a great movie, to make a film. And I do believe, humbly, as much as I can be, and happy we did it, that we made a great piece of cinema. I really do think so. So yeah, being with my brother, our relationship has grown a lot. Not that we were at each other's throats or anything. He's 8 years younger than me. And he has a line in the movie where I ask him about something about our parents, like, well, how do you feel like doing this around our parents? And he said, maybe it'll help them understand more. And I always love that pause he gives. He goes, maybe they'll understand more. Because I think we always think we understand, oh, that guy was in a war. He must be fucked up. Oh, that guy was in a war. He must have PTSD. Oh, that guy's an alcoholic. He was in a war. It's like, but to understand the actual fabric of what makes these veterans tick the way they do, or the hide the way they do, or hurt the way they do, that I think it was much more revealing of that fabric. And I have to say I do understand that so much for my brother. And in the process of finishing this movie and marketing it and getting it out, I have to speak for him often because he's the quiet one and I'm the film guy. So I have to be very careful how I do it. But and I don't mean careful like tiptoe, but nuanced with how we say things, and to properly represent their feelings and what they've been through, and especially the families. We premiered the movie 2 weeks ago at the GI Film Festival in San Diego, and I've probably seen the movie 150 times personally, up until a month ago when we were doing the final mix, and I get teary-eyed every time because the movie is important, and the movie is powerful, and the movie tells some stories that are really touching. And when I was sitting in the theater with 7 of the Gold Star families, 51 of the family members 2 weeks ago, I wasn't as emotional watching the movie. I was more focused on what that families, are they okay? Are they getting up to leave? Is that the movie wasn't important anymore. It was like, did we deliver honorably the message of who their son was and who they are? And my total mindset shifted, so to more like a caring role, really. Even though I had that when making the movie, it really, I wasn't even paying attention to the film.
Oh my gosh, I always get at work, I get nervous whenever like a boss or somebody comes by and reviews my work before it gets sent out. I could only imagine how you must feel with the subject matter of this documentary. Given what they've been through already, you want to do right by them. So having Gold Star families watching your documentary, I can only imagine the the nervousness. Can you talk a little bit about that? What was the nervousness whenever they were seeing that for the first time?
Well, so I had a lot of people say, "Oh, have you shown this to the families? Oh, even at the night of have the families seen it? Have the families seen it?" And I'll have to say, like, no, we didn't, because we knew we were doing right by them. We knew we were doing right by them. Because we've already been a part of their lives. My brother, for some of them, since he came home on deployment in 2011, he met some of them on the tarmac when they came to greet the planes back, and they had a ceremony. For the others, he met when he delivered that carving to them. But me personally, I've had a relationship with these families now for about 3 years, and so I didn't want to disappoint them. The biggest thing is I didn't want to hurt them. Like, did we say something? Or the hard part is you have 17 families in a movie. You can't have all their story. So like, there were things. We had a drink the night before the premiere, and one of the moms said to me, "Oh, I'm so excited you're going to tell the story about how he got his first BB gun and he got his da 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 da." And I was like, "That's not in the movie." I was a little self-conscious because there's things that we had to cut out to make the movie flow. But man, I have to tell you, like, they were all thankful. At the screening, they were happy, and the next morning we had coffee with them in the hotel lobby, and we all talked for like 3 hours, and they all feel like we did them right, and they all want to see it play in their hometowns. They want to push it further. They want and if, like, again, if all of them say, "I just don't want him to be forgotten. I don't want his name to be forgotten," they all kind of live by this. You live 2 deaths, right? The day you die, your body dies, and the day they forget your name, right? And so if we never let them forget their names, then their son, their husband, their brother will never die. So we got good feedback from the families. So.
And you've talked a little bit about the film festivals that it's been shown at thus far. Can you talk a little bit more though about what the process of just releasing it at the film festivals, what the reception from other people has been like, and things of that nature, and what, again, I think I'm going to release this July 8th, so hopefully any information that's embargoed before then we should be good to reveal.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'll be despite my best efforts to make a film that would cross the aisle, it hasn't crossed the aisle in the film festival world. So, we submitted it to Sundance, we submitted it to South by Southwest, we submitted it to Tribeca. We got denied from all those film festivals. The GI Film Festival is one that we've had a couple of short films, and I made a film. My brother adopted his dog Allie, who he was in the military with. He was a bomb dog handler. Actually, that poster there is Operation Allie,
Yeah.
and that was a runner-up in the GI Film Festival. It played a couple other film festivals, but we almost didn't want to premiere at GI because we thought, oh, the minute we put it at GI, people are going to go, oh, it's a war movie,
Right.
but they offered us the opening night slot, and we couldn't turn that down because that's a real honor to have opening night.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who's an Oscar-winning documentarian, and he said, you know what, take it, because if that's your premiere night and you're in an audience that will appreciate what you're doing, that's just going to be good for your egos. It's going to be good for your heart. It's going to be good for your soul to feel the love of that. And GI Film Festival was the place for it. We are going to be Tulsa premiere. We're going to be having a private party in July 11th, just a few days from now, at the Circle Cinema Film Festival. We're the opening night film there. Invite only, opening the fest on Thursday, July 11th. And then there will be a ticketed screening on July 13th at the Circle Cinema Film Festival. We've applied for about 10 other festivals right now. I can't tell you any of the others that we're in because we haven't got any, but I can tell you this, and I won't name it yet because I don't even know by the time this airs if it'll be public knowledge. But we have sold the movie already to a national broadcaster,
That's exciting.
and it will be making a television premiere later in the year. So yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
exciting. And I'm sure, so that's a good reason for people to, I could put your social media links in the description of this video, and I'm sure whenever that information is available for you to share, like you could share it on your socials, and people can watch it whenever they get a chance there. That's really exciting. But then you also mentioned, a lot of my audience is based here in northeastern Oklahoma. They'll have a chance to see it in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the Circle Cinema Film Festival. You're from this area, right?
Yeah, I grew up here in Tulsa, born and raised in Tulsa. Currently still live in Tulsa. I live 10 minutes up Highway 75. Go to church at Holy Family Cathedral, big hang out at Kilkenny's every day, basically. So yeah, I'm a Tulsa guy.
Hashtag true Tulsa. That's got to be a whole other level of a little bit of nervousness with like releasing it in your hometown. It's like, oh no, now everybody that knows me is going to see this thing I've made.
Yeah, we owe it to this town. We have a lot of people that were investors. We have Adam Green out at Max Barbecue and Skytook had a couple fundraisers for us. Adam Green himself is a Marine veteran. He has Canes he has Max at Canes as well. The Circle's been a big supporter of my films too. Yeah, hometown screening is great. At the same time, we have some of our investors here, a lot of our supporters. This festival feels like the movie's coming home. A lot of it takes place in Tulsa. My brother and I are from here, and so it's it is a little nerve-wracking, but it's good. It's good. It's you gotta show your projects where you live, and Tulsa's flourishing with production and art and culture, and it just feels like this is ripe to play it, and I think the people, I think Tulsa is such an interesting place, having lived on the West Coast for a long time. Again, I know I keep saying I'm not being political, but I keep going back to the political. I feel like in Tulsa you can be on the left or you could be on the right, and you can still sit in the bar and have a conversation with someone, and you're not going to get in a knockdown, drag out, yelling fight. And I think when I lived on the West Coast, sometimes, especially in Oregon where I lived, it was very divisive, very divisive. You're one way or the other, and if you weren't that way, then you're a jerk, and if you were that way, you weren't a jerk. And I think I think Tulsa will have a great audience for it because people are going to be open to the message regardless of where they're coming from. And that's what I'm really excited about. Is just this is our home, and we are more than thrilled to show the movie here.
Tolson's love common sense. I think this movie is for people for a lot of people with, I feel like a silly saying it, for this movie is for people with common sense. And I think a lot of Tolsons have common sense, and I think they'll enjoy this movie. I know I'm excited to see it. Manny Marquez, thank you so much. The new film, Make Peace or Die. Catch it in Tulsa at the Circle Cinema Film Festival or on television later this year. Follow him on social media for more info. Manny, thank you so much for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, that's our show. I'd like to thank Manny Marquez for joining us this week. Make sure you subscribe to the Film Fan Club on YouTube because we got a big month coming up. We're going to be talking about Maxine, Deadpool and Wolverine, Twisters, so much more. Subscribe here on YouTube. We're also available wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple and Spotify. Oh, and this is new. The Film Fan Club is now on Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram at The Film Fan Club. I'm Sam Carrico. Thanks so much for joining us, and I'll see you next week.